Imagine being on, like, a state-of-the-art high-speed train.
Oh, yeah. Top of the line.
Right, you're breaking every single speed record, the engine is roaring, the scenery is just blurring past your window.
Making incredible time.
Exactly, you're making amazing time, but there is just one massive problem. You are on the completely wrong track.
Wow. Yeah, that's a nightmare.
It really is. And today, we're looking at a framework that argues your modern obsession with speed and momentum. Our whole culture's obsession really might be the exact thing keeping you from reaching your actual destination.
Because you're just getting to the wrong place faster.
Exactly. And we're pulling our insights today from detailed notes on an episode of the Elevate podcast, specifically an episode titled Divine Alignment, the Power of Katartizō.
It's a heavy title.
It is, yeah. And to be clear, right up front, we are analyzing a religious and theological framework presented in these notes.
Right, we want to be totally impartial here.
Right. We're not here to preach or endorse a specific theology to you. We're just trying to impartially crack open the mechanics of this ancient blueprint for purpose and preparation.
Because regardless of your personal beliefs, the psychological and structural insights it offers about how we pursue success are genuinely disruptive.
They really are. Okay, let's unpack this. Because the fundamental difference here is between just moving and actually being aligned.
Yeah, and it completely flips the modern script. I mean, we live in an era that worships at the altar of hustle culture.
Oh, absolutely. Grind never stops.
Right. The prevailing wisdom is that any forward momentum is inherently good. If you're exhausted, if you're burning the candle at both ends, well, at least you're moving.
Yeah, at least you're not standing still.
Exactly. But this text argues that there is a profound fundamental difference between movement and alignment.
Which is what, exactly?
Well, movement in this framework is simply defined as activity. You're doing this, you're crossing items off a to-do list.
Right.
But alignment is defined as accuracy.
Activity versus accuracy. I like that. I understand the distinction on a conceptual level, but I kind of want to push back on this on behalf of anyone listening who is, currently deep in the trenches of their career or their personal goals.
Oh, for sure.
Because slowing down feels incredibly dangerous.
It does. It feels like failing.
Yeah. We are so conditioned to believe that if we stop to, quote unquote, align, we lose our competitive edge. Someone else takes the promotion.
Someone else launches the product first.
Exactly.
Wow.
So isn't this focus on alignment just like a high-minded excuse for procrastination?
Yeah.
Doesn't the sheer volume of activity eventually guarantee some level of success?
See, that is the exact trap the source material identifies. We use busyness as a safety blanket.
Oh, a safety blanket.
Yeah, the text points out a pretty harsh reality. It says you can be highly gifted, incredibly busy, and visibly successful to the outside world.
Right, everyone thinks you're killing it.
Exactly. Yet you can still be entirely ineffective when it comes to your actual intended purpose because you are fundamentally misaligned. Going back to your high-speed train analogy, if you're on a track heading south when your destination is actually north,
none of that speed matters.
Right. All that horsepower, all that efficiency, and that impressive speed is actively working against you. Momentum without alignment just means you get to the wrong place a whole lot faster.
That paints a terrifying picture of success, honestly.
It really does.
You could spend 20 years climbing a ladder, only to realize it's leaning against the wrong building.
Yep.
The sheer velocity of your career doesn't matter if the trajectory is just flawed from the start. So according to this framework, it's the accuracy of your alignment that dictates your destination, not the intensity of your movement.
And what's fascinating here is how the text frames the divine perspective on this.
Okay, tell me more about that.
It proposes that God is not merely interested in blessing people or just handing them success. He's interested in aligning them first.
That's a huge shift in perspective.
It is. I mean, many people pray for increase, right? For promotions, for massive open doors.
Constantly. Like, give me more, give me bigger.
Exactly. But the framework argues that before any of those massive shifts are released, there has to be a rigorous process of internal adjustment.
Which brings us to the machinery of how that adjustment actually happens.
Yeah.
Because if we realize our train is on the wrong track or, our ladder is on the wrong wall.
How do we fix it?
Exactly. How do we fix the structural integrity of our lives? And the notes introduce a very specific vocabulary for this, anchored by a central ancient Greek word, Katartizō.
Katartizō. Historically, it is a remarkably multidimensional word.
What does it actually mean?
Well, it means to restore, to mend, to adjust, to equip, to prepare, and to put into proper order.
That is a lot of definitions for one word.
It is, but they all share the same core idea. It's the process of taking something that is damaged, misplaced, or ineffective,
Okay.
and painstakingly bringing it back into proper, maximum function so it's fit for its intended purpose.
The source notes provide 3 very visceral physical examples of how this word was utilized in ancient Greek culture, which I thought was super helpful.
Oh yeah, the examples make it so clear.
Right. So they used Katartizō when describing the mending of torn fishing nets,
Yep.
the setting of broken bones back into alignment, and the equipping of soldiers for a brutal battle.
And notice, these aren't passive metaphors.
And not at all.
They involve work, intervention, and frankly, a whole lot of friction.
Let's look closely at the first one, the mending of nets. The text references the biblical account in Matthew 4.21, where James and John are found mending their nets.
And the specific Greek word used for their action there is katartizō.
Right. And you have to ask, why spend hours meticulously repairing a net instead of just throwing it back in the water to catch more fish?
Because a structurally compromised net cannot hold a harvest.
Boom. Exactly. The fish will simply slip through the tiers. And I want to take that imagery and apply it directly to you, the listener.
It's a tough question to face.
It is. The text frames this as a profound diagnostic tool. We constantly ask for a greater harvest. We want the bigger team to manage, the higher income, the larger platform.
But we actively refuse the repairing process.
Yeah. The text asks these incredibly piercing questions, like, can your character actually sustain what you're praying for?
Wow.
Can your integrity sustain massive influence?
If we look at the psychology behind that, it's pretty devastating.
How so?
We often lack the internal capacity for the external success we crave. If you hand a massive, record-breaking harvest to a fisherman with a severely torn net,
It just rips the net completely.
exactly, the weight of the harvest itself will destroy whatever is left of the net. The blessing literally becomes a burden because the underlying structure just cannot hold it.
So before the expansion, there has to come the alignment.
Precisely. The preparation is actually a form of protection.
Oh, I like that. If you get the CEO job, but you have a quote-unquote torn net when it comes to emotional regulation or conflict resolution,
That job is going to crush you.
the harvest destroys you. That makes total sense for external tools and capacities. But the second historical use of katartizō deals with something much more internal and infinitely more agonizing.
The setting of a broken bone.
Yeah, setting a broken bone. A physician resetting a fractured bone into its proper structural position.
The text makes a crucial observation here. It says believers, and just people in general, desperately want healing.
But they want it without the adjustment.
Yes. They want the bone to magically stop hurting exactly as it is.
Which is just not how biology works. Think about the mechanics of that. If you allow a fractured bone to heal while it's out of alignment.
Right, it heals crooked.
Exactly. The acute pain might eventually fade, but you're trading it for a lifetime of chronic pain. You walk with a permanent limp.
You have a structural weakness that will give out the moment you put real pressure on it.
Right. To truly heal, you have to endure the sharp, intense, blinding pain of having a doctor physically snap that bone back into place.
And that is the psychological friction of katartizō. People want the growth, but they despise the stretching.
Oh, man.
They demand the promotion, but they completely resent the preparation. We want the ultimate purpose handed to us without having to walk through the grueling process of becoming the person who can actually handle that purpose.
There's a defining quote from the source notes that encapsulates this so well. Before God sends a man, he aligns him.
Before God sends a man, he aligns him. That fundamentally recharacterizes the pain we experience during periods of delay, doesn't it?
It totally shifts it. It moves from a narrative of punishment to a narrative of structural mending.
The universe isn't just beating you up.
Right. It's resetting your broken bones so you can run the marathon later.
That's a great way to put it.
But this does raise a practical question. Katartizō is this grand concept of structural mending. How does a person actually actively participate in that?
Because it can't just be passive.
Right. The source text doesn't just leave this in the abstract ether. It points to a very tangible, everyday mechanism for alignment. And that's the vocabulary we use.
It transitions from the physical metaphors, like the nets and bones, to the internal and verbal mechanisms of reality.
Right. How do we drive the alignment process?
The text introduces 2 more ancient Greek concepts to explain this, focusing heavily on the power of speech.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The first word it introduces is homology.
Homology. The literal translation is to say the same thing.
Okay.
Homo meaning same, and logio meaning to speak or reason. Within the context of this theological framework, it basically means bringing your own words into total agreement with what God says about your situation.
So the notes reference Romans 10.9 and 1 John 1.9 to build this argument. And the premise is pretty stark. It says, faith and alignment do not begin with your feelings. They begin when your speech matches heaven's declarations.
It forces a mirror right onto our daily habits.
It really does. You cannot consistently speak defeat.
Talk about how nothing ever works out for you.
Complain about your lack, and then expect a life of victory and abundance.
The psychological equivalent is cognitive dissonance. The text is pointing out a fundamental contradiction in how we operate.
We're basically fighting ourselves.
Exactly. We desire the promises of this framework, we want the aligned destination, but we continually speak coordinates that send us in the opposite direction.
Ah, the coordinates.
Yeah. If alignment is defined as accuracy, then your words must be completely accurate to your desired destination. Kingdom alignment, as the text phrases it, demands kingdom speech.
It's like getting back into that high-speed train we talked about. If your goal is to travel to a city in the north, but you sit in the conductor's seat and continuously program south into the navigation computer,
You are fundamentally misaligned.
your words are the programming language of your life's trajectory. You can't program failure and expect the system to output success.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. And if homology represents the individual words you're programming into the system, the next Greek word the source introduces expands this to how your individual life integrates into the broader reality around you.
And that word is symphony.
Symphony, which is the root of the English word symphony.
The literal meaning is to be in harmony. And the notes tie this directly to Matthew 18.19.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text uses the imagery of an orchestra. This isn't just about two people having a basic agreement. It is about complex, harmonious alignment.
Okay, paint that picture for us.
Think of a massive symphony orchestra warming up before a performance. When every single instrument is tuned to the exact same standard, the result is sweeping, transcendent music.
I am thinking about the middle school band concerts I had to sit through as a kid.
Oh boy.
You know, when you have 90 kids playing adequately, but one kid in the second row is blowing a completely untuned, screeching clarinet.
You don't hear the harmony.
Not at all. The entire auditorium winces at the misalignment of that one instrument. The discord ruins the whole experience.
And in this framework, we are often that untuned clarinet.
Ouch.
Yeah. The text suggests that the intense frustrations, the roadblocks, and the friction we experience in life are frequently just symptoms of our own misalignment. We're trying to play our own tune in a symphony that requires us to be in harmony with a larger divine score.
That makes a lot of sense.
And this leads to what I think is the most profound paradigm shift in the entire source text. It says, sometimes God isn't withholding. Sometimes he is retuning.
Sometimes God isn't withholding. Sometimes he is retuning. Just let that sit for a second.
It's powerful.
When you're the one holding the instrument, and the conductor taps his baton, stops the entire orchestra, and points directly at you to adjust your strings, it feels humiliating.
It feels like rejection.
It feels like you're being benched. But the conductor isn't kicking you out of the performance. He's insisting that you sound your absolute best before the curtain goes up.
It changes everything about how we perceive an unanswered prayer or a closed door. But understanding that conceptually is very different from surviving it practically.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Being retuned is deeply uncomfortable. It requires an admission that our current state is inadequate.
Which begs the question, right? How do we navigate the psychology of that? How do we recognize when we are actually in a phase of divine alignment rather than just failing or spinning our wheels? Because our brains are inherently wired to seek comfort and avoid friction.
The source material provides a clear blueprint for this, and it begins by pointing to the ultimate model of alignment, Jesus.
Okay.
It references John 5:30, where Jesus states, "I seek not my own will, but the will of him who sent me." The text makes a razor-sharp distinction here. Alignment is not merely having the intellectual knowledge of what God's will is. Alignment is the absolute surrender to it.
Surrender is almost a dirty word in our modern vocabulary.
It really is.
It implies weakness, defeat, giving up. But here, surrender is positioned as the ultimate mechanism of strength.
Yeah.
It takes a massive amount of internal fortitude to know what you want to do and actively choose to submit to a more difficult, longer process just because you trust the architect of that process.
And because that level of surrender cuts completely against our human nature, the text outlines very specific observable signs that you're entering into the Katartizō process.
Like markers that your internal structure is shifting.
Exactly. First, your priorities undergo a radical change. The superficial metrics of success that used to keep you up at night suddenly feel weightless compared to your desire for actual purpose.
Interesting. What's the second sign?
Second, and perhaps most challenging, conviction becomes stronger than convenience.
I want to camp out on that phrase for a minute. Conviction becomes stronger than convenience. In our culture, convenience is king.
We optimize our entire lives to avoid inconvenience at all costs.
Exactly. But the text explicitly attacks the misconception that God's primary goal for your life is your comfort. It argues his primary goal is your transformation.
Right.
When you're genuinely being aligned, you find yourself actively choosing the hard, morally right, structurally sound thing over the easy, comfortable, immediate thing.
You override your own neurological wiring for the quick fix.
What are the other signs?
Well, the text lists that your speech begins to reflect that homology we discussed. You stop complaining and start declaring.
Okay.
Your relationships also begin to experience intense refinement. People who celebrate your misalignment tend to fade away. And crucially, God begins correcting areas of your life that you previously managed to ignore or hide.
Correction. Nobody likes being corrected.
Not at all.
It stings the ego. But the text offers this incredible reframing. Correction is not rejection. Correction is divine calibration.
Calibration. It brings us full circle back to the instrument being tuned, the bone being set, the net being mended.
Calibration implies immense inherent value.
It does.
You don't spend hours meticulously calibrating a cheap disposable tool. You calibrate a highly specialized, incredibly valuable piece of equipment so that it can operate at its absolute maximum potential.
That's spot on.
If you're experiencing correction, it's proof of your value to the ultimate purpose.
Right.
So how does the listener actively participate in this calibration? If they recognize these signs, if they feel the sharp pain of the bone being reset or the frustration of the delay, what is the action plan?
The text highlights that this cannot be a passive endurance test. It requires active submission.
Aye.
Referencing Romans 12.2, it starts with the continuous renewing of the mind. Alignment always begins internally before it manifests externally. You have to change how you perceive the delay.
So practically speaking, what does that look like?
You have to practice homology by speaking the truth over your situation rather than just narrating your anxiety.
Stop narrating the panic.
Exactly. You have to willfully submit to the process of the broken bone being reset rather than medicating the pain and just limping away. And you maintain this not as a one-time event, but through a constant relational connection to the source of the alignment.
So what does this all mean? If we synthesize this entire framework, according to these source notes, our society is obsessed with open doors. We spend all our energy trying to kick doors down, pick the locks, or find a window to crawl through.
Hustling.
Right. But the text argues that the true miracle, the actual heavy lifting of the divine, isn't the opening of the door. The miracle is the meticulous, excruciating, unseen preparation required so that when the door finally swings open, you don't collapse under the weight of the room you just walked into.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Because, to repeat the core thesis, movement is not proof of alignment.
You can be sprinting toward a door on the wrong track entirely.
The ultimate takeaway of this framework is that divine elevation, the success, the harvest, the purpose you're desperate for, is purely the fruit of divine alignment. You cannot have the elevation without the Katartizō.
The mending before the catch.
Yes.
The agonizing setting before the healing. The equipping before the battle.
And that leads to a final provocative thought from the source notes that I want to leave directly with you, the listener. It's a thought that should fundamentally disrupt how you view your current struggles.
What is it?
The text states, you may not be experiencing delay, you may be experiencing Katartizō.
Just let the weight of that sink in.
Look honestly at an area of your life right now where you feel completely hopelessly stuck, an area where you feel paralyzed by frustration, where it seems like everyone else on the internet is sprinting past you and you're just trapped in this agonizing, humiliating delay.
It's a terrible feeling.
It is. But what if you aren't actually falling behind at all? What if, in this exact painful moment, you are simply the broken bone being meticulously, lovingly reset? What if you are the torn net being carefully mended by a master fisherman?
Because if you just force your way forward on the wrong track, you'd end up miles away from who you are supposed to be.
Exactly.
If you just kept throwing a structurally compromised net into the water, you would lose the very harvest you've been begging the universe to send you.
The delay you're fighting so hard against, might not be a punishment. It might be the exact preparation required so that when you finally reach your destination, you actually have the structural integrity to survive your own success.
It completely revolutionizes how you view the waiting rooms of your life. They aren't waiting rooms, they are calibration labs. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the rush, keep demanding to understand the process, and remember, sometimes enduring the pain of being realigned is the only way to guarantee you're running the right race.